The thing is, we'll go through that. I was hoping to hear from you guys, and they were open to hear how you've been lately. And I know that's kind of unique, but since COVID, since things have changed, the world is a little different. What's the life of a voice actor look like now?
You want to go first?
No, you ladies first. So I'll go.
So short.
No, really, you go first.
Oh, okay.
I like following your stuff.
I would say the main difference for working during the pandemic, which is something I think we can all relate to, is that there's so much going on around you. There's so much in the news. There's so much to worry about. There's so much to take care of. And then you have to work. After you've already made sure you're okay, your family's okay, your family who's not living with you is okay, all of those things, then you carve out space to work. Whether you leave to go somewhere or you're home to work. It takes a very different focus nowadays to get something done. Anything done, I think. For me, I do pretty much all of my recording at home now. I've always been able to do that for the past 8 years, but now I have to do it there. I'm doing cartoons, video games, audiobooks, all from home. It's great to be working, but it's difficult because you've got to make dinner, and you could do it right there. You've still got to do the dishes. You still have to do all your regular stuff where you used to be able to leave and focus and do your work and come home. Now it's all just there, and one day blurs into the other. So I find too that I miss working with people because it makes me creative in a different way. So I prefer people.
Yeah.
But it's, again, it takes a very different focus.
Yeah, and for me, the two things that I do for my creative outlet is I'm a musician and I'm a voice actor. And when COVID happened, all of my live events disappeared, both with conventions, but also with playing music. And this is not sort of I need to be the center of attention statement. It's more as a performer, especially with music. It's a dance with the audience. I'm not playing at you, where I'm playing with you. So I play my music and I can tell by the vibe of the...
Vibing, I was going to use that.
Yeah, I can tell by the way that you guys are responding, whether I should do another up-tempo song or a slower song, or get a feel for that. And a lot of my friends started to do all the online performances, and I just felt like, well, that's like me just practicing alone in my bedroom, because a chat is not going to be the reaction that I need. So I missed that interaction tremendously. I don't mind working alone with my voiceover work as much, because it gives me the freedom to do it when I feel like doing it, as long as I deliver it on time. And I work from home, I've got a studio at home, and it just gives me a chance to, I'm not feeling that right now, I'm gonna take a walk with my dog around the block, or I'm gonna sit in the backyard and have some lunch, and then I'm gonna do that as long as I get it to them tomorrow morning. So I like, that didn't change so much. But the big picture for me was, I think the little silver lining of this madness that we've all been through is it has given me a chance to really look at what's really important with my time and with the people that are important to me, and the ones that are not, and the things that are not worth stressing over. And also, I think that companies and businesses that had to switch to a more remote situation realized, because we've all been saying, dude, I could do this from home, and I still work really hard, but I don't need to come into that cube and sit in that cubicle all day. I can do what you need me to do and still have a life. I think that that's become a thing that people are now focusing on. I live in a place where I could, if I had internet and electricity, I could do what I do anywhere that I really want to live.
Yeah.
Where it used to be, I had to be in New York City to be able to do all the FaceTime kind of meet and greet. And this forced us to look at this and say, wait, you could have quality of life and also make a living. And of course, that's why a lot of people are moving to places and doing things differently. But I think that you have to try to look for some sort of positive thing to such a negative thing that affected us all so tragically. But yeah, that's it for me. It's priority. It's quality over quantity. I love doing events again. I love seeing people. You know, most of my career, I guess you thought something was funny. The only time I ever knew you were laughing is when I get to meet you and you say, "Oh, that line was on." I'm like, "Oh, good, that worked. That was great." Or you know, that was a moving scene you guys did. I cry every time I see that. Oh, really? So I guess I did a good job with that. I miss the interaction, and it's so great that that's coming back to be part of what my life is. But yes, we need to prioritize what's important and who's important in your life to spend time with.
Right, agree, and we're spending it with you, so.
Yeah, there you go.
You're number one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here and doing it again. It's so great. I think I've heard it from almost every fan this weekend. We're just good to be around each other again.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yep.
I can't do what I do from home. I mean, nobody can. I mean, we can do our jobs, but we can't do our compassion's not the
That's
same.
right.
Our empathy's not the same over Zoom. It just isn't. And I don't know from your jobs, but at least from mine, we retain about 10% of what we do in a Zoom meeting versus a meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, yeah, what do we got? Oh, I'm on mute, so I'll just, phone call over here. What's
Yeah.
going on, And so that's it. We're back together and in that respect.
Yeah.
But with your career,
Totally.
fantastic to be able to do it like that. So it's kind of.
Yeah, I
at
record
this
so
point,
much 12 to 5 a.m.
It's kind of, yeah,
It's
exactly.
horrible.
Whenever you feel like
When I get off the plane tonight, I've got a 2-hour voiceover session and I've got a mix of music thing.
I was
Yeah,
actually
same.
going to ask you that too. Like, so you are very actively working.
I get in at,
Yeah.
our flight lands at midnight, and then I'll probably do pickups at 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining that we're working, but yeah.
But now you can do it at any
Yeah, of
time, you
course,
still
yeah.
have to do it, so.
Yeah.
The toughest
have
thing,
to
yeah.
rest.
The toughest thing is to go back into a uniformity. If they were ever to be like, hey,
No,
we need you down in a studio
Yeah.
from 8 to 4.
The traffic,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah,
the
that's the
traffic.
hardest thing, going back to
Yeah.
driving again.
I
Boo,
know.
boo, traffic, anybody? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
What's the deal with traffic?
But I mean, that's the thing, at least it's also gotten us to focus a little bit more on the climate and see
Yes.
what we can do to, drive less,
Yeah.
stuff like that,
Anything
to
to
really
balance.
focus on some other
Yep.
things. Yeah, and care about each other.
I think that's
important too.
paramount, absolutely. Or at least
Or
universal.
Disney.
Yeah, or at least Disney.
All right,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I like that.
Well done. I was going
Because
to
you
make a
work
joke
for
and you
Disney.
beat me there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am a
yeah.
Disney guy, so that's why I wanted to say Paramount
Right.
instead.
Hey,
Swinked into that
hooray,
camera. What the heck was that?
yay.
All right, guys. I know that some of you probably have some questions for our panel, but while we begin doing that, I'm going to bring
It's
some
going to be
paper up here. This is it. This is going to be great.
Wow.
This is you may
Everything
recognize
is
as
to be seen.
paper.
Okay.
This is
Paper.
it's made from trees, unfortunately,
Love
but
this.
some of it might be
It's gonna
recycled.
bamboo.
Probably isn't, but it might be.
So,
I have plenty.
And
okay, I've got some too.
how many pages do you
All right,
need?
what are
And
we drawing
the markers
here?
here. This is kind of a unique thing.
Apologies ahead.
This is trash now. All right, here we go. We got markers here.
Yes.
And what we'll do is while they are asking questions and you're focusing on answering them,
Okay.
you will also draw your character or your favorite character from Pokemon.
Okay, great.
How about that? Does not have to be your character, but could be your favorite character.
I'm gonna
You can
take
use
two.
multiple colors if you want to, as much, make it as embellished as you want.
These colors.
If it's all yellow, just remember the
Wow,
audience can't see
you
it.
took the. All right, I'm gonna
You want
start.
brown?
Come
Are
on.
you doing brown?
I need. Well, it's a surprise.
There it is. Yeah, that's it. That's it. We gotta
I'll
see
just
what it
keep
is.
this out and everyone thinks I'm doing Pikachu.
Perfect. Yeah, there you go. While you're doing that, if you don't mind, I'll bring the questions around just so you have to
Okay.
multitask. There you go.
Thank you. So obviously you guys have been voicing for a long time. I mean, you did it since probably 90s and 80s, So my question is, what is it like to do the dialogues from back in that time and today's time? Considering that during that time in the 90s, obviously when you're dubbing, they changed so much words and dialogues from the original Japanese sub, because obviously, of course, instead of saying fried rice, you say jelly donuts and all.
Right.
So what is it like to do dialogue back then where they changed so much words from that versus today where now they're trying to translate it and try to say almost the exact same word from word in the sub?
Yeah, you go. his green vest, orange shirt.
That's right.
Right?
Hot mic.
Don't you think that's right? I've looked at Rob for a long time. You've been wearing the outfit.
So to answer your question about the dialogue stuff, so unlike, yeah, that's what I needed, thank you. Unlike most of the fans, we rarely have an idea what they're saying in the original Japanese.
That's right.
And as someone who directed a lot of these shows, I will tell you that even the writers had no idea what the original stuff was. So a lot of the storylines and jokes and things like that are very regional to where they come from. We had conversations with the original Japanese creators who would push for certain lines to stay in shows, and we would say, your joke in English does not make any sense. I know you think this is the funniest thing in the world, and it could be in Japanese, but not in English. So we did, my Shakespeare line, frying pan, drying pan, where I'm holding that over my head, that is not even close to what I said in Japanese. So as an actor, it really didn't matter that they were changing it from what the original was in terms of verbatim. What I did mind was sometimes we worked on shows, and not so much with Pokemon or with Yu-Gi-Oh, but some other cartoons that I worked on with other producers who tried to take something that might not have been kid-friendly because it was maybe too violent for Saturday morning cartoons, and tried to change the storyline, edit things out that were inappropriate, and that would sort of, had to take so much out and change so much, it really destroyed the show. So that don't do it then. Like, find something else, or find a different place to air it. Like if it's on Cartoon Network or something that's cable, things like that, they have different rules with broadcast standards. So that's the part that bothered me the most. Now, like when we did Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Side of Dimensions and everybody came back to do the film, we tried to approach the English version of that as close to the original story as possible, and we were able to do that. So most of the time the actors really don't even know what the original dialogue was, unless they speak Japanese and they play it for them.
And we don't really hear it that much beforehand either. So you also don't have the luxury usually to say, I don't agree with this. You just have to record what's written for that. So we don't have as much say, and I don't think I would have known that things were so changed if people didn't bring it up. Because we didn't know what the original was.
Yeah, because I know for back in that time, during the 90s, obviously, animes, they were heavily re-edited and redone, but now we live in today's age where they keep almost exactly the same simulcast from what they already showed in Japan.
That's right.
Here, and they try to, and when you do the dialogues, obviously nowadays, they just keep, it's almost exact word to word like they did from the original, so instead of like back then and all.
That's totally true.
Yes. Good question.
Does Ash have brown eyes?
Yes.
See?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
This is from memory and with help from my friend here.
Thank you for calling me a friend. That's really nice. You see, with the pandemic, we've grown close.
Look what's happened,
Do you
everybody.
think Ash drawing a Pokeball?
You're
Do you
saying,
think Ash holding a Pokeball?
oh, yes.
She can do
of
anything she
course.
wants to do, but she doesn't have to.
Of course.
No,
I'll
we got
go
one.
in.
Yeah, go ahead.
I need him.
So, with you guys being voice actors, did you guys get to spend a lot of time actually working together and seeing each other? Or?
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to answer that, or are you still
No.
ready? No, you're ready.
I mean, I'm answering.
No, but you're focusing on that part, right?
I'm almost finished.
So most of the time we work alone,
We always work
right?
alone, yeah.
I did have a chance to direct Veronica because I did direct a lot of the episodes too. So that's actually a way that I not only got a chance to become closer friends with a lot of the cast members instead of just saying hey to them as we passed each other in the halls, but you're also getting a sense of their talent, to know what kind of range they have as actors. Because if you only are, I'm working on the show with, she's doing Ash, and that's what she does. But we've worked on multiple shows together, and it's like, oh, you're going to do this Irish accent, and then you're going to do this thing, and it's like, it's a lot of fun that way. But Turtles, when she has a much more major role in our version of Turtles than I did, but they recorded as a group. And when they do that, it's called prelay. So that's recording the voices first, assembling the dialogue, and then giving it to the animators. Like I did that with a show called Viva Pinata. I directed Viva Pinata, one actor at a time, assembled the dialogue and sent it to the animators, and that's called a prelay. That's how all of the Pixar things are done, right? But the majority of what we were doing is all matching already existing animation, so that's one actor at a time.
And we wish we worked together,
Yes.
and you sometimes get to hear what the other people have recorded, but not always.
Yeah.
So you also, it's good to know the person so that you have an idea of how they might say the line. So as you're skimming the script, which you've never seen before, and you're recording from, you can have an idea of how the line will come at you, so you have an idea of how to respond. And the picture definitely informs the response, but you're using a lot of your imagination to fill in those very wide gaps.
Because sometimes, I mean, imagine a joke, like a setup line and a punchline. If the punchline is recorded before the setup line is, then the
Yeah.
person who's reading the setup line next knows what the delivery is going to be, so they can give that to them, right?
Right.
But the person that has to read the punchline with only seeing
Yeah.
the text of the setup line might not know how to play off of that exactly to make it really funny.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
up to the director at that point too, who hopefully will be the same director for both actors during that session, so that they can explain what they're going to ask of that other actor.
That's right. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't mean to be, I'm listening to you and trying to do my job.
Yours is that's great.
But I'm making all these horrible sounds that make it sound like it's not me, it's the marker.
Oh,
So, maybe that's what
so
Oh, shoot,
I
I
went
did the public
I went to
access
art
idea.
school before I started playing music. I went to actually a school called Music and Art for art. Once I started to meet all my friends who were incredible artists, I realized that I should focus on audio. And my mother's always like, "Are you still drawing?" I'm like, so the only time I really draw anymore, and this is a very rare picture that you got for me, is that I refuse to buy a birthday card for anyone that I care about. So if you get a birthday card from me, it's usually hand-drawn with like multicolored graffiti letters, all that sort of stuff. And it's not like they're masterpieces, but that's where I still put all my silly cartoon stuff in there. But recently I don't know if you remember John Lennon's art, but he always did this minimalistic little squiggly stuff. So that's, if you want to show that,
It's good.
so my
It's
approach
darn
is
good.
now all like as minimalistic as possible to
Look
get
at
the
that.
point.
Wouldn't you hang that at like a restaurant in New York though? Wouldn't you?
Right?
At
Yeah.
Sardi's.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's just like it's got to be.
It's gorgeous.
Less is more, right?
It's
you know it's
perfect.
rock.
It's minimalist.
The
and it's
hair
rock.
and the eyes. Yep.
The eyes, the hair, the vest.
The
Yeah.
best.
Oh my
It's-
God,
There's
that's
a lot
color.
of detail.
It's all there, I mean-
There's a lot of vests in this show.
That is true.
But I just Brock have a backpack.
Oh, wow.
Rock does have a
But he's
backpack.
facing us.
But yeah, he's wearing it now. You just can't see it.
I was like that in art school, like people would put out these like really intricate stuff, and I'm like a minimalist person, and it'd be like, I felt like a 5-year-old, like, hi.
Yeah, but that stuff is
But it's
cool.
art.
Like, yeah, I mean, I think.
But
that's
one thing also, no matter what you've drawn, if you have fun doing it, it's art. And it doesn't matter if somebody else is like, hey, let's buy this.
Well,
Yeah.
It
Did we
matters
have
that you
fun?
enjoy yourself.
Not
Yeah.
sure, that's also a.
Hopefully you're having fun today. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's look at Ash, everybody. Wow.
Now you understand why mine took 2 seconds.
Upside down
She's
Pokeball.
got the whole
Upside down, sorry. I'm
That's cute.
just, Ash is a loser. But,
No.
no, just kidding. It's upside down.
That's cute.
I always do that.
That's perfect, and I wouldn't have noticed. So that's good. And so there's Ash and Brock together.
That's so cute.
Look at those guys. Now that's cool.
Thank you guys for being so
Well
supportive.
done. Well done. That's fantastic.
Thank
Oh
you.
man. Let's see what other questions we got. I'm going to take it over to our Ranger Shop and Pop panel. People, here you go. I know you don't, but here you go.
Yeah, theater voice.
Yeah.
But hi. So I went to school for acting and things like that, and of course we have a class where we focus on voice and like accents and stuff, but we don't really dive into character voices that is really used in voice acting. And I do want to really get into that because I do love like cartoons and animation because I grew up with it. So how do you guys go about by developing a character voice that sounds literally nothing like you?
I really think it's based in the class that you took. I never took a voices class. I took speech, so you learn about projection, you learn about developing a character, and along with that, you learn about the areas that you can put the voice, and then you just start working with that. If you're lucky enough to have a play that you get to be someone that doesn't look like you, that you can be further from yourself, then you're already working on different voices. I think it's more about developing the character than figuring out the voice to put on. When you kind of embody it, the voice comes out a bit, and then you can move it around and try things out.
Yeah. Are you a singer?
A little bit. I mainly do musical theater.
So I find that having a musical sense is really helpful in voiceovers anyway, because inflection is just pitch, right? So like, do you want to go to the store? Do you want to go to the store? Do you want to go to the store? Same sentence, different meaning based on the pitch that you change, right? So for me, I know what's in my wheelhouse of where I can place my voice. Because growing up, I would imitate every singer that I liked, right? So, oh, it's going to be my Elvis register, or now I'm going to sing like, you know, whatever. I'm going to do my Jim Morrison thing, or now I'm going to sing, whatever it is, right? You try to mimic that stuff, and you try to find where that placement is. I love when kids come up to me and say, I had no idea that Brock and James were done by the same actor. And one of the reasons is when I knew I was going to be playing these two characters that spoke to each other, is that they are placed in completely different places in my voice. You know, Brock is in my head, and James is in my chest. So because of that, it doesn't have any buzz. James doesn't have any buzz in his voice. Brock is all buzz in his voice. Finding those places. Now, I'm also a voice actor that will tell you I can't do something. Oh, can you do this kind of dialect? No, that's not something I do. Can you imitate this guy, sound like him? That's not an impersonation that I do. I have a good ear, but that's not, I know people that can do that better than that. I have my I call it like my bag of tricks. Yeah. I reach into my bag of tricks and I pick out, okay, how old is this character? Okay, I got this range, like that's what we're going to talk about. That's where the placement. Okay, where are they from? Okay, they're from New York? Okay, now I got a dialect. I'm going to do that. Are they over the top? Are they subtle? Are they? Okay, and I keep pulling things out of the bag of tricks, but it's all within the same spectrum of things that I do. So I might do 10 starting places, and then from those I add on top of them. So if you hear a voice actor tell you that they can do 300 different voices, they're lying to you. They basically do 30 different voices and then they add on top of that, right? And then it becomes those other voices. Because the same voice could be done, you know, I could talk to you like this, you know, or I could talk to you like this, like I'm from where I grew up in Brooklyn. I am using the same voice, but I got a dialect. You know what I'm saying? So it's something to add to it. And play around with that. I mean, it's hard to judge your own performance, but even if you're doing improv with your friends, acting out scenes from movies or a show that you like, listen to how you're placing your voice. Why do you like that character that they did? See if you can mimic it too, and then make it your own. But hopefully that helps you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Oh, he's gonna have to pick you.
Oh,
Yeah.
go right
I'm not
ahead.
in charge of that one.
Oh, yeah. I'll
Know
sit
your
right
place.
ahead.
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Alan Z. I'm also a musical artist and actor. So along the lines of something you mentioned, dialects, I am super bad at accents. Like I've always wanted to do a British. I've lived in England. I still can't do a British accent. So I was wondering, because you just did like a dialect very well. Is there like a trick that you can kind of get your mind to focus on, like getting an accent right, like or like a certain dialect?
She is much better at nailing authentic dialects than I would ever be. I am great at doing character versions of things and some legit things, but it's like asking me to do a Southern accent. I would say to you, what city, what county, what do you talk like? Because I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I can give you 4 different accents from the area I live in. You want a New York accent? I could give you 3 different ones from the same neighborhood I grew up in. So but I know that Veronica, you did a lot of accent work and because of stage work and things like that, it needs to be legit more than it needs to be a caricature of something.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it also depends on what the project calls for. I studied accents to do like speech dialect in school, and so there's definitely a way that you can technically work through it with the IPA, which is the the phonetic pronunciation of sounds and the differences between. So when you're taking a class like that, you're learning how to move through. I think listening and in your own privacy, repeating what you hear. I definitely, when my daughter and I are traveling, we do accents all the time. And it's often at the wrong time because I'm doing an accent right by someone who legitimately has that accent, and it's really
we were
embarrassing.
traveling together overseas, I think you were doing an Irish accent. We were in public.
No, and also in Wales.
Yeah,
I'm
in
working
Wales
on
you were
that.
doing.
I know.
Yeah, you were doing it.
Comes out all
But
the
that's a
time.
great test. The locals thought she was from there.
And so I'm always trying to do Australian,
Oh, yeah,
New Zealand, and it's really bad. I'm like, oh yeah, sweet A's. You know? I mean, and then they're like, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing. But here it really plays. Where nobody knows. But I do think it's helpful to really listen to people and then just try to imitate that. There's a lot of stuff online when I have to do accents for an audiobook or I do a lot of English as a second language things for people learning English, and that calls for accents too. I always listen to different things before my job. And I mark through things in my script and all of that, but definitely playing around with it. And to also add to your question of is there a trick, I think if you have a sentence like pack the car and have a yard,
Your
you know,
rev
when
up,
you're doing that
starter,
thing,
yeah.
it can kind of get you into a kind of that place, you know, and you can work through that. If you have a little sentence, it puts you in mind of it.
Yeah.
It can place it, because
Yep.
some accents are in the front of your mouth, some are back, you know, all of that. A lot of times you do a British accent and it always is in your chest. So go with that for a while, and then until you move it into another character.
Also, an interesting social experiment is, I'm sure we've all experienced this, you might not have even noticed it, but when you're spending time around people who all speak a certain way, and you're around them enough,
Yeah.
you start to pick up
Yes, definitely.
and you're not mocking them.
Right.
You just start to pick it up. I know that if I'm sitting with my British friends for an evening, by the end of the evening I have a British accent on some words. And the same thing with the Southern thing. I've had my New York friends say to me, you sound like you're a Southerner. And it's not that I have a Southern accent, it's just that you fall into that. I think as humans we try to fit into where we are, right? To be accepted into the
And
community.
that shows respect, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
too.
and but even if it's not a conscious
Right.
decision, we are doing it. So, for instance, as Veronica was saying, like if you wanted to perfect your British accent, you could watch a whole bunch of really good British movies and British television, and just be hanging out with those people. And there's some really good ones. You know, Luther, right? Watch something like right?
So many accents in that, too.
And listen to that, and just talk with those people, and I think hearing that so much, you will pick it up, especially if you're musical. It's going to be drilled into your ear, and your friends are going to be like, I didn't realize you were British.
So when I was on tour, I was in Delaware, right? And so there was a woman, she was dating the guy who owned the studio, and she was British. So she's not like my British pen pal. She sends me like audio messages for me to imitate.
Nice.
And because she's British, she's brutal. She'll be like, Alan, that was horrible. But like you said, it helps me know what the actual dialect sounds like, as opposed to like you said, like a caricature. Because then it sounds like I'm just making fun of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good question.
Thank you guys so much.
Which street are you at? I promise you I'll go next. I'm coming back to you. Don't worry. Don't worry. You think I missed you. Here we go. It's all you.
Really?
See, you know I'm doing it, yeah?
Yeah, get this right. Hello.
It's on.
It's on, Jen.
If Ash is 10, how old is Brock?
Oh,
He's 15.
He's 15?
Yeah.
What's he doing traveling with 10-year-olds?
He's like the only one old enough to be like escorting them around as a
I
chaperone.
thought he was 12.
No, I think he and Team Rocket are all like the same age.
Wait, Team Rocket are teenagers? Team Rocket?
Team Rocket is.
I thought they were adults. Yeah, I thought they were adults.
Yeah, they're 15.
Team Rocket is 17.
I
thought they were like 20-year-olds.
I don't think it's
Do you know what Brock's real name is? Do you know what Brock's last name is?
What?
No one here knows.
Is that true? Are you making this up?
No, do you know what James's last name is?
No. It was in that one
How do you
episode.
know?
James Morgan
Whoa.
and Brock Harrison.
Hold on. Is James's middle name Patrick? Is he J.P. Morgan?
That would be hilarious.
Is that?
Yeah, because I'm talking about like his
Brock
royalty.
Harrison?
Yes, and do you know what Brock's father's name is? I played him.
Rex Harrison.
Flint.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do know that. I knew that.
Yeah, the whole Brock family story one and the James family story one. Yes.
Him being 14. You said 14.
No, 15.
Brock, no, that can't be. What the heck would he be doing traveling with a 10-year-old? And his misty.
Well, obviously, one parent was like, "Do we know anyone who's at least a teenager to take these kids around?"
No, I don't think Ashley's mom even cared about that. She's like, "Good luck."
Well, here's why 15 made sense. Okay. For those of us who were 15-year-old boys, what were they most distracted by in high school?
I can't
There are
remember.
3 answers to that. That's right.
Yeah.
Girls.
Okay. Video games.
And girls.
Sports. Girls. Okay. Yeah.
So they made Brock he's a teenage boy.
Well, that's great. I'm really glad. No wonder he had to coach. He's the only one who could play with matches.
And Jenny and Joy are older. That's one of the reasons why they don't go out on a date.
That makes sense.
That's right. Of course not, because he's. I thought he
Yeah,
was
they're like say, 18, 19, because they have a job.
My mind is blown.
Brock
by
doesn't
that
have a
question.
job. He's still in high school.
You were in that gym for a while.
Yeah.
If that's a job in the Pokemon world. Is that a
They
volunteer
have, I
thing?
think they have self-cleaning clothes because they've never gone to a laundromat.
And honestly, if Brock would just like calm down, like even like 10%,
Yeah.
the fact that he cooks and cleans and he's a good friend, he can easily get it.
He and Mr.
he's a
Mime
good dude.
direct
Stop with
competition.
Mr. Mime. Not Mr. Mime. That thing freaks me out, man. That's just some crazy stuff.
He's a dream companion.
You know, Mr. Mime, the Pokemon is a mime that speaks.
Well, he doesn't speak when I mime. Oh, he does mime.
If he says mime,
Meow.
no, just
right.
saying anything
You're right.
makes you not a mime, though.
Yeah, you're right.
The very essence of it should not
That's why I
say
said
anything.
that. Yeah.
not.
All right. This is too crazy. What's your question?
Yeah.
There it is.
Hi, this kind of piggybacks off of their questions a little bit.
Oh, right, fine. Next time, bring your own question.
They stole my question. No, I'm just kidding. I'd love to hear about the audition process and how you kind of landed on the voices for Ash and Brock and the other characters that you played.
I would have to say that I wish there were a more romantic, wonderful story, but I think it's lucky that we happened to get called in. We watched a snippet of a very short bit of the show in an effort to get us to imitate as closely as we could what the original Japanese voices were. And then we waited and had callbacks, and it just kind of, it was even kind of less than other auditions I've been to.
True.
But there was a lot of, like, I mean, especially for me, I got called back a number of times. I was apparently cast and then uncast and then cast again because they were thinking of maybe getting a real child. And then I have no idea. Again, most of the time as an actor, you don't know anything that's going on. These were just me getting a phone call because back in those days, we talked on the phone. Or my beeper would go off and I would call my service. But for that, there was no real idea of what was happening with this project.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my Pokemon experience was I didn't get any roles when I first auditioned. I replaced the guy that they cast for Brock before they started dubbing with him. They decided they didn't want to use him, and I was the second choice, which made me feel both good and also bad. And then I replaced my friend who was the original James for about the first 5 or 6 episodes because he was a stage actor and wanted to pursue that. And so at first I did a vocal match. I came in to do that. And at the time, so remember, this show was brand new in terms of in America. Our team had not really even gotten enough material to have looked ahead more than 1 or 2 episodes. So when I was brought in to play James from Team Rocket, the direction was, these are very serious bad guys. James is very serious. And I said, I don't think that's right. I said, aren't these guys like Dick Dastardly and Muttley? Aren't they like the kind of like the goofy, funny bad guys, the comic relief? No, they wanted played very flat. And the next episode, I think I was in drag. And I said, that's where the woo and all all the silliness came in. That was not from the original guy that did that. That was all Eric going, no, these are goofballs. We need to be funny. So, but to go deeper into the audition process, so as an actor, especially a voice actor, because we do get, I think we get more things sent to us at once than, you know, because it's a little less prep than you're going to do it on camera, where you might need to get the outfit and then get yourself on videotape. So, you know, on a good week, I might have 2 to 3 auditions, maybe 4 a day of little things. And so I'll tell my wife, hey, I got like 3 or 4 auditions I got to do, and then we can go out to dinner or whatever. And usually it's like, when I see her, so what were they for? I don't. There was one was a bank thing, and this one was kind of funny. I don't remember what the product was, but it was funny, and then you forget it.
Yeah.
So it's like going up for a job interview or like a blind date multiple times a day. And just going like, I can't even start to think about the potential money I could make if I booked all of these things, because that's not how the business works. I know from being a former casting director, I know what the process is like on the other side, and I know that the decisions usually have nothing to do with the ability. It's usually like, oh, well, this voice sounds different than the lead person that we already cast, even though this is not a good performance as the other person, but he sounds too much like that guy. We can't use 2 identical sounding people, whatever. Or that guy's name is the same as my ex-boyfriend, I'm not going to use him. Seriously, that's happened. So it's really like it's this unknown. You just do it and then forget it. And then sometimes you get a call a week later, and you're like, I have no idea what I did for that. Do you have a reference of what I did in the audition?
Exactly.
But it's also fun because you're asked to do something spontaneously, create something on the fly.
And you invest as if you have the job.
Yeah.
And then you leave it.
Yeah. I recently did book a campaign that I really liked doing, because after that audition, I did say to my wife, not only did I know what the product was, but that they were funny. And when I realized I had said that out loud, I was like, well, that's a good campaign, and I must have understood the script well enough. And then, of course, I got booked it. Because it's great to be funny, but how many funny spots have we seen on television? We're like, it's the one with the guy with the car and the thing, and what's it for? I have no idea. I think it's a beard thing. Oh, it's a medical one.
Oh man. You know what, guys? It's hard to believe that we are out of time.
Yes.
no.
It is incredible.
Was there any other burning
I
question?
do know that there was
has to
one
be-
question here, so I'll make this the last one.
Yeah, we can go really fast if we just say, yeah.
There's, okay, two
Yeah.
really quick.
Oh, I just wanted to hit the ass voice real quick.
Yeah, I would say,
I wanted to also.
Ranger Stop and Pop, I choose you!
Nice. Give it up, guys.
Okay, is that everybody's questions? What's your quick one?
So, obviously, you have Netflix has made live action adaptations, and they announced that Pokemon was going to be next. And also, would you consider being part of the adaptations of live actions of Pokemon?
Oh my gosh, neither of us chose to leave Pokemon. We were replaced by Pokemon USA. And so I think anytime we would be able to be part of it again, we would say yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course.
How do we get in touch with the people so we can make
That's right, I don't know.
Start your letter writing
Especially
campaigns,
for the live action, that would be so awesome to make a cameo appearance or do something
totally
like that.
could play James in real life.
Yeah.
Give me the long wig, and I totally
Totally. And did you have a question also? Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
My question is, because I run an audiobook myself,
Oh yeah.
and I have a question. What best helps y'all get into the characters as far as the voices?
Sure. And you narrate, you said.
I run an audiobook, like I write it and direct it.
Oh, okay. I would say, so for my process for audiobooks, I read the book, I write down all the characters, and then I write down, just same as you break down for a play, what people say about them, what some of their characteristics are. Sometimes you've got 5 women who are speaking the whole time, so I pick high voice, medium, low. I write down things that will help me remember who they are. I also change if they speak quickly or fast. Sometimes I do a lot of books for Mary Kay Andrews, and she writes in the South, but doesn't want Southern accents. In this last book, there were Southern accents, but you could only sprinkle it on. So I decide kind of where I'm going to put it, who's going to have a little bit more of one. ultimately, you embody each character as you go along, figure out who the narrator will be, what that middle voice is, and then branch off from there. So that's how I do it. I keep the notes. If I'm working with an engineer, they will have a reference. If I'm working by myself, sometimes I record it. Sometimes I have to go back on my own to listen. Maybe you can teach me how to do that, actually. But so that makes it really hard working alone. But that's how I do it. I make kind of a big quilt of it all. And then once I've written it all down, I break out who has to have the most outstanding voices and then sprinkle in the extra characters too.
Her answer is a lot better than mine, and probably one that you should follow a lot more than mine. I don't do as many audiobooks as she does. That's by choice too, because they are time consuming, and I'm much more like a cheetah. I like to sprint fast for short distances. I never read the book ahead of time. I read just the synopsis of what it's about. I ask whether they want dialects for the characters or not. Because for me, a lot of times too, there's really nothing new, right? In terms of, I need to know who the good guy is, the bad guy is, and kind of what the overall vibe is supposed to be, and I can kind of wing it a little bit. I have been thrown once where I did a sci-fi book that had about 50 different characters. They wanted different dialects for every single one of them, and their names were hybrids, like in Blade Runner, where the street language is a mix between Chinese, Spanish, and whatever. So there was like, oh, and this character's name was like, you know, Sven Yagasaki. And then by the time they described where he's from, it said, Sven Yagasaki, the Frenchman.
Right.
Yeah, and you're just like,
oh my God.
Oh, that's not what I was doing for the first 30 pages. So that's where it would throw you. But yeah, but yeah, her prep makes much more sense, especially if they've got tweaks on certain voices that they want.
For the Warrior Cats books, I was doing part of a series. One book had 120 cats. And I had to really work it out into all the clans, all of those things, and they all had to have shades of different voices. It's very hard work. It's wonderful work. But I have to really grind through the book, and then I get to read it, which I also don't remember it all the time because I'm working it.
That's like you have to have a whole sticky note.
In some, I usually have my paper on the side and with all the names so I can be reading and refer to it, and I have my iPad so I mark it all through who's talking.
And if you weren't working alone, you would at least have a producer
who can say that sounded too much.
Who can help like steer you, but we are doing so much stuff by ourselves.
But it's really great. Good luck to you for everything on your end of
definitely.
things. Audiobooks are wonderful. We all find comfort in what we watch or listen to, and that's what brings us all together. So it's pretty wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Veronica Taylor, thank you so much. Congratulations for being here.
So we're going to be at our table for just a little bit longer. I'm leaving here in about 45 minutes. So if you want an autograph from me, come see me before 4.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for spending time with us and your great questions.